This is The Future Of, where experts share their vision of the future and how their work is helping shape it for the better.
I'm David Carston. Every day we face increasingly complex environmental challenges. Climate change, pollution and biodiversity loss require immediate attention and action. So what does a sustainable future actually look like, and how do we begin moving toward it? Well, my two guests today propose that one answer lies in embedding sustainability in education and industry to ensure environmental stewardship can happen at scale and becomes an intrinsic quality of future generations. With me today to explore this topic is Professor Josh Byrne and Saf Flatters. Josh is an environmental scientist, urban design professional and Dean of Sustainable Futures in the Faculty of Humanities at Curtin. If you don't already know Josh as a presenter on the ABC TV series Gardening Australia, you might know him from his books on gardening and sustainable housing, academic contributions, or sustainability consultancy projects. Saf is currently studying data science at Curtin, following years of experience as an electrician in the electrical and energy sectors. Saf and Josh first met during Curtin's 2025 Sustainability Challenge, an experience that further fueled her passion for sustainable solutions. If you'd like to learn more about this topic, visit the links in the show notes. Josh, you've had a long and fascinating career in sustainability, spanning everything from academia to media. Was there a moment when you realised that sustainability was it for you, that was your passion?
Well, sustainability is a very broad field, as you can imagine, and I think that works well for me because I have many interests. But look, my interest in sustainability probably was triggered by a love for the natural world, which really kicked in quite early. But by the time I was a teenager and I'd already fallen in love with gardening, and for me, gardening and growing up in suburban Perth was a connection to nature in a cultivated way. But that soon developed into an interest in design and seeing how the connection between different elements within gardening is actually a process of environmental design, which has led my passion for gardening and the work I do since then. But it was probably as an early sort of university age student in my early 20s. I'd been studying environmental science for a few years and I really started to develop the intellectual interest in what are the many disciplines that underpin what we call the field of sustainability, particularly urban sustainability, drawing on urban design, drawing on hydrology, drawing on the biodiversity elements of the built environment. And that really then drove my research interests, particularly in water-sensitive urban design, and then moving into energy-efficient buildings, and then starting to see towns and cities as urban ecosystems. And I think it's that ecosystem frame or model that, whether it's applied to natural systems or to built systems when done well, is really what drives my interests.
Broad is a very good word, Josh. To be a little bit more pointed now, as Dean of Sustainable Futures, can you tell us what a sustainable future actually means? How does that shape up? And why is that concept so important to us right now?
Well, for me, a sustainable future is one where humanity can prosper in a fair and just way. And that's really important. For humanity to do well, we all have to do well. Not only is that the right thing to do from an ethical perspective, but it's also just common sense. If one group of people have more than others, you're never going to have balance and symmetry. So equity is more than just a moral imperative, it's also a practical one. But then there's the more than human. So a term that's used to capture all those other incredible parts of this planet that we share. And we need to make sure that the more than human can thrive as well. And again, that's more than just the fair and right thing to do. It's also realizing that as one species, we live within a very intricate web of life. And if we don't recognize that and we allow it to unravel, well, that's at our own peril.
Has sustainability and the challenges attached to it become more complex over time? We talk about equity, for example, and when we see people are actually being displaced from their homes due to the effects of climate change and the like, what are the solutions, and what is giving you hope for the future? And that's to both of you.
Working towards a sustainable future, it's not a destination, it's a journey, and that's also how I help to reconcile the point in time where we are now, and perhaps where we might work towards, recognizing that we do live in a dynamic and therefore changing environment, and that's always been the case. Sustainability is not about the status quo or treading water or keeping things sort of as is or as they were before. It's about working towards that balance. So sustainability is getting more complicated because we have population growth and therefore more competition for limited resources. And it's not to say that we necessarily have to limit population growth. We have to be much more fair with how we distribute the wealth. That really is the first thing. And that's getting harder and harder to do as the way that the global economy is running, and where we have this incredible disparity in wealth distribution. So that's really tricky. But also, things are moving very fast, and the way that humans are dealing with rapid increase in communications, with information overload, we now have a lot to cut through. Even though we have these amazing tools to understand information in near real time, in a way, humans are being overwhelmed by this. On top of that, we are seeing some major shifts in basic Earth systems that support us, namely climate. And we're entering a phase where the climate is becoming less stable for the first time since the period in which humans have been practicing agriculture, the very means by which we can support our population and our settlements. So this is new territory. Very, very complicated systems are being disrupted. And of course, many other things like impacts on ecosystems, the novel materials, as in new materials that don't exist in nature being produced, and these are persistent, so persistent chemicals, persistent materials like plastics. All of this adds to the complexity, particularly when our day-to-day lives and the way that the economy runs largely relies on these products, these systems, and these services. So yes, it's getting complicated, but we shouldn't shy away from the challenge.
Yeah, so I agreed. Absolutely way more complicated than it used to be. It's always been complex, or we would have had much better ways of dealing with sustainability before. I think another important point, talking about the dynamic complexity, is that our solutions now can be dynamic. We can leverage new and emerging technologies and look towards the future because we do have the computational power to be able to build new technologies to deal with some of the big changes in climate and just in sustainability in general.
That's exactly where I wanted you to go with this, Saf, and that question really was with that career trajectory that you've enjoyed to date, bringing in an energy specialisation into the field of what you're studying now, which is data science. Can you tell us what you're bringing to bear in this sustainability conversation, especially in terms of the role data science has to play? Josh sort of intimated that there's so much information and so much I guess, stuff coming our way in terms of intel. How do you use that to our advantage in finding these novel and dynamic solutions?
Well, the reason I was drawn to data science as an electrician and working in industry was that data science seems to bring structure to complexity, and that's something where I could then shift over and have a look at some of our bigger energy issues that we have. And these big problems that we have in the energy crisis and equitable energy. And there's something there in data science where we can pull the pieces apart, look at a very much bigger data than one human is capable of doing, or even a team of humans are capable of doing, and perform big statistical processes to find solutions. Isn't that so exciting? Like, that's why I'm so excited about data science. And the more I'm moving on into this degree, I'm in third year now, it just adds, it is just cementing the reasons why I chose to do something like this. And the ultimate goal is to bring it all together, like where this learning about statistics and computer science on big data comes into helping people in industry or helping researchers on big problems. And I think that having that vision from both sides is going to be really useful in the future.
Josh, to me, that sounds like hope built on a real foundation, isn't it?
Hope is a really important thing to keep hold of. There's a lot of doom and gloom out there in the world, particularly at the moment. There's multiple wars happening, which distracts us from, even bigger issues like climate change. And it is easy to be overwhelmed by these issues. But there are huge opportunities, as Saf has pointed out, for us to apply new tools, emerging innovation, to tackle things in ways that we have not been able to do before. And so when we're talking about this idea of sustainability and doing more than just trying to keep the status quo, we actually need to move towards applying a regenerative lens to what we do, recognising that we have depleted a number of the Earth's resources, particularly biological resources, whether it be forests or fisheries or soil, water. But we have the knowledge and we have the ability, if we choose to do so, to regenerate and actually have energy positive, nature positive solutions. And this is a mindset that we do take into the sustainability challenge as a way of trying to support students and our industry partners to be optimistic and positive about the future. And when we look at this notion of sustainable futures, we have to be optimistic. Humanity has always been optimistic. It's why we're still here. It's why we do big moves like, trying to send people into outer space or trying to go to the most extreme places on the planet. There is this sense of wanting to be positive, do things. And that is very much at the heart, for me, of what we mean by sustainable futures.
Saf, you participated in the most recent sustainability challenge with a cohort of other students here at Curtin. Can you tell us what your experience of that was for those of us that have not taken part ourselves? What happens on day one? What do you see? What do you experience? And what was your motivation for being part of what Josh has just introduced for us here in the chat?
What I went in thinking, it was just another unit. And that is definitely not what I experienced. So it was over 8 days, and we were put into a team of other students from all around the university that I had never met before or had even known that some of those departments existed.
Right, so it was quite interdisciplinary.
Absolutely.
Each of the teams.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. And I think that might have been the point, right? And we were given a challenge. And our challenge was to come up with a strategy to decentralise power and water at Curtin University with the idea that we need to be more climate resilient in the future as brownouts and water shortages may become more common. And that's a huge task to do in 8 days. And this unit, every day, we just had access to many, many professionals from government, from corporate, from academia, who all focus on their own sustainability challenges. And we got to hear about their challenges, but also they could help us float ideas about how we're going to approach our challenge. I really got to see the inside of what professionals who work in their own fields do when it comes to sustainability. And that was a major cultural shift to what I've experienced in my very maths and statistics theory heavy units so far.
I imagine part of that would be actually getting a first-hand view of the parameters within which they have to deal with as well, and maybe some of the fiscal and corporate realities of coming up with solutions that are viable, right?
Yeah, there was. Surprisingly, there was a lot less, no, we can't do that. It was more, let's explore that. How would you fit that in with the current infrastructure that Curtin has? And so everything came back with a really positive, okay, let's think of some crazy ideas and then let's try and make it realistic.
If you can cast your mind back to June, do you remember who was on your team? I'm not asking for names, but more with regards to the combination of disciplines that work together to come up with a holistic view and holistic sort of solution to that problem that was posed to you.
Yep. So on my team, we had a mechanical engineer, a mechatronics engineer who was focused on space science. We had a mechanical engineer and construction management, which I didn't even know was available at Curtin University. And then I was the data science student, and most of them didn't know that data science degree existed. And I guess I also got to kind of sneak in a little bit of my infrastructure maintenance and management, asset management experience as well.
You were the triple threat. Well done.
Yeah.
Josh, when you hear Saf's account of her experience of this year's sustainability challenge, is it everything you hoped it would be for participants or more?
It's great validation for something that we set out to pilot 3 years ago now. So we're now at our 4th iteration of the annual Curtin Sustainability Challenge, which set out firstly to deliver education quite differently. That is, move away from a traditional classroom or lab type environment and put students and industry, which includes government partners and groups from civil society together to work on wicked problems. And our thinking here is that the big sustainability challenges of the day, which align with big global megatrends, so countries all around the world are dealing with the same big issues, but we localize them. How do we tackle these things locally? And how do we do it in a way with different disciplines having a voice in that process? Because that's how we address them. The siloed approach hasn't worked so far, so it makes sense to try something differently. What we've set out to do is also create an environment where all the participants, both students, industry partners, and academics, all contribute an equal voice to the process. Everyone brings their expertise, their own learned and personal experiences, and have something to contribute. That's also reflective of the type of values and approach that we would like to see our graduates have out in the workplace. It's also about building a range of other skills outside just helping the students to develop expertise or an understanding of key sustainability concepts. For many, this is the first time that students may have had a chance to do that. But also to build skills in communication, using new and emerging software and communication tools. And these are part of a rounded pedagogical experience that we try and create. But perhaps most importantly, we provide students with a learning environment where they can really explore ideas, have a sense of ownership of these problems, and take this optimistic, forward-thinking approach. Doing it in an intensive way where the students work together over that week, and it culminates in the students presenting their ideas to solving real-world industry problems, is very powerful. The relationships that are formed in that intensive sprint, the rapid learning that takes place, the deep learning that happens as well when students aren't just digesting information they're being told, but they are actively engaged, deeply engaged in the learning process, is very, very powerful. So when I hear Saf describe her experience, it's very rewarding and it makes me think that we are on the right track. But importantly, we are always reviewing and consistently looking to improve and to modify this process, because we are at a point in the sort of educational landscape where we do need to be testing new ideas, where we do need to be listening to what industry and wider society are dealing with and how we can prepare our graduates for that and how they can do that as part of their learning rather than just completing education and then getting out there and trying to help. Let's combine those two.
Saf's experience is one level of review, I guess, of the sustainability challenge. What have the industry and government partners said in discussions post challenge about the input coming from Curtin?
The way we go out and recruit our partners is we create an expression of interest opportunity, and we go through avenues within Curtin, such as the research partnership team, the learning partnerships team, also Curtin's entrepreneurial and commercialization team, who have got wonderful connections out there into the wider community. And we invite potential industry partners to put forward ideas that align with the big global sustainability megatrends, which include net zero emissions. That is, how do we look at mitigating climate change and improving resilience also as part of that. Challenges aligned with a circular economy, so moving from a linear type economy where we've got a take, make and waste type approach to one that is a lot more resource efficient, and we sort of start to design out this idea of waste. And then finally, ecosystem health and well-being with a nature positive mindset. So these are these big themes we put out there. And we get all these wonderful responses back from a range of industry partners, some corporate, some government, sometimes not-for-profits and community groups. And we try and pick challenges that not only we think are really pressing, but also are going to be practical and realistic for students to tackle. Now, then we put these student teams together, intentionally made up of students from different course backgrounds, so different disciplines, because we see the richness that comes from that. And then the students work away on these challenges. We bring in other industry experts to provide feedback at key touch points. So they provide almost like an additional perspective that is different to the main industry partner who's briefed them with their particular challenge. We also bring in government partners who come and advise the students about the strategy and policy context around their challenge. So they're not just working on these things in isolation. And for many students, it's the first time that they may have considered what it means to think about positioning a problem within a certain policy jurisdiction and to understand what's happening in that space. And then finally, the students are supported by leading academic mentors throughout the week. The students then create a solution and they pitch it. We put on an amazing showcase event where we invite the partners and other people from across the university. And the students are there in their teams, normally of 4 or 5 students, with a showcase presentation. And what they can produce in a week using all sorts of wonderful digital tools is quite remarkable, not only in terms of how they've developed the ideas, which is supported through a studio-based learning sort of pedagogy throughout the week, but also the polish on it and how they pitch it. It's really quite remarkable. And so our industry partners are often blown away. And what we consistently hear is how impressed our partners are at how seriously the students have taken it, how quickly they've learned about these issues, from being briefed on it literally a week beforehand to coming up with at least part of a solution or identifying things that could be explored further to deal with these big issues. And we hear from our partners that they want to stay involved and stay connected. And for us, that's really important because I mentioned earlier about sustainability being a journey, not a destination. What we're looking to do here is also to build relationships with our partners and to see what other opportunities are there for Curtin to work with them and for them to work with Curtin. It's a two-way thing to provide other opportunities for collaboration and addressing these things. So research opportunities and the like. And often it's a great way just to make that first point of contact or to consolidate new relationships and then to look towards doing more things together.
This is a big question, and if you can't offer me specifics right now, that's fine. But in the last 4 years of the Sustainability Challenge, have any of the industry partners come back to you and said, well, you know, Josh, this is something new. The solution that Team X has come up with is we really need to look into this further. This is something.
So it's unrealistic to think that a group of students, typically undergraduates, we do have some master's students participating as well, are going to solve these huge problems within a week and problem done. All things sorted. That's unrealistic. What we try and do, so firstly and foremostly, this is about student learning experience. How do we use the challenge to really support the students in a deep learning process? Secondly, we try and identify ideas that might then be pursued at another step. And so a great example is from one of our early challenges, some ideas that were put forward and relationships that were cultivated between the academics involved and the industry partner led to a partnership in a major national research project on net zero precincts. So what started as a formative relationship around the sustainability challenge and a student sort of set of projects has now grown into a much more sophisticated and enduring relationship. And this is exactly kind of the pathway we want to set up. From the most recent challenge, there were several projects that were put forward where our industry partners have said, look, they haven't nailed it, but we're really impressed and we think there's ideas worth pursuing. And so we're in the process now of linking those students and the industry partners up to see if there aren't opportunities where they might like to pursue those forward. What's also really exciting is by cultivating these opportunities for collaboration is that students are getting exposure to industry, there's future job possibilities. Our industry partners are getting insights into the capabilities of our graduates. And of course, there are also relationships being built with our academic mentors and industry. So we try and achieve a number of things with these challenges. First and foremost, it's about student experience and their learning journey. But we need to be really making the most of these initiatives. And so we try and have multiple outcomes coming from the projects.
And all of those are tangible outcomes. So industry and government cannot be in the business of wasting time. So if they are identifying talent and great ideas through the sustainability challenge, well, that says to me that it's succeeding.
Absolutely.
Saf, your team, if you are able to keep it simple for the likes of myself, can you, again, just run through what the challenge was and what the solution was that you came up, or maybe it was multiple solutions. Can you give us a potted version of that?
Yeah, so our challenge that was given to our team was to work out a way to decentralise power and water at Curtin University to aim for climate resilience. And our solution was, well, we explored multiple technologies, new technologies like kinetic energy, with old technologies like solar and water harvesting, and came up with like an off-grid mode for Curtin University. How can we get Curtin to switch over from grid power on grid water to be able to, run more circular inside and in times of crisis? And one part that I got to sink my teeth into was I got to explore this idea of peer-to-peer energy network trading.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I know it excited me. The idea that somebody who you can have solar in your house and you could sell your excess energy to your neighbor. And your neighbor can buy energy and know it comes from renewable sources off you rather than off the grid. And the idea that then we can become more resilient. Our grid lines can become more resilient because of that. And I pitched it as if Curtin, yes, we could go off grid, we could have this solar, but how about in times of crisis, the nursing home across the road? What are they going to do? Well, maybe we can share our excess energy with them, and support our community in that way. The best part about this unit was that as I was looking into this, I could see that we'd done trials in Western Australia, but I couldn't quite work out what had happened since, and why hadn't these trials had moved beyond that stage. And speaking to Josh, and then finding out that not only Josh, but many of the industry professionals that were mentoring us in the room had actually been part of these trials, had designed parts of this system in Western Australia. And I kind of got the insider goss of what were the trade-offs of this particular system and what were the benefits that they had found and where it is currently. And that stuff I couldn't find on public reports. And that really drove home that these industry professionals that were in the room were at the forefront of looking into emerging technology for sustainable reasons, and also that they were currently shaping the future of Western Australia.
Saf, earlier you mentioned how, I guess, more pointed your focus has become in the time that you've been at Curtin as to what you're going to do with the skill set that you're gathering. with regards to the sustainability challenge, what have you got out of that, and how does that relate to and contribute to your career focus for, I guess, post-university life?
So one of the major takeaways I got from the sustainability challenge was that taking people from really diverse backgrounds, people that I don't normally hang out with or would choose to be in the department that I would ultimately work in. Working with that, we could create some really unique solutions to some really big problems, and that the future is now. That experience has already shifted even how I'm working this semester. So I've chosen to do a student research project on exploring how to encourage private industry to share their data so that we can reduce waste and duplication while fostering innovation and allowing collaborators outside of, say, businesses or even those departments to help with their problems and ultimately, hopefully, global problems.
Josh, what are your thoughts in the role of government and industry and our global future?
Sustainability is very much a shared problem, and the solutions will have to also be shared solutions, and their benefits have to be shared. So when we look at something like the sustainability challenge, part of the framing of how we encourage the students to tackle their particular challenges is not just one with this lens of regeneration and optimism, evidence-based optimism, very importantly, but also one of recognizing that there are reasons that we've ended up where we are. And very rarely is it because there's some Dr. Evil industry that is intentionally making all this happen or capitalizing on all of the wealth that's generated. Or rarely is it, a government department to blame because they're not doing their job better and we should ask government to do more. We try and unpack that with a bit more sophistication. And, we're very fortunate to have very strong governance in this country. And we have, clarity around roles and responsibilities in government. Yes, we would like things to happen faster, but we have a really functioning system. So one of the things we do, and the purpose of bringing in government briefing partners, is to try and explain to the students where their particular challenge sits within jurisdictional boundaries, what's already happening in this space with government strategy, policies, and what levers can be pulled to accelerate rapid change in this space. Policy work and legislation, for that matter, is slow business. And once people understand the reasons for that, they can better utilize and work within these systems. Importantly as well, it is fruitless trying to work on outcomes and results that don't reflect the reality of the day, what is happening in policy, what is happening within the economy. So the more we can understand these processes, including identifying areas that can be improved, the quicker we're going to get to progressing the sustainability journey. So hopefully with that comes a little bit of pragmatism and maybe even a little bit of wisdom that's imparted amongst the group that try and move away from frustration, be solutions focused, work within teams, align yourself with positive change makers that are making a difference, and contextualize your work. And that's the best way to see success. So this is the kind of, I guess, the collaborative environment we try and form, including with our partners.
Saf, what was your experience of that additional context and that extra detail and that depth? Did that really arm you with a much better understanding of how to shape a solution?
Yeah, absolutely. I think without understanding the limits, we could only go so far with our solution. Once you and I think this comes with everything, once you know the barrier that you're allowed to, the confines you can work into, then our ideas can then become actual solutions. And that we saw that with talking to Western Power and the Water Corporation, who Mark Timpson was there, and speaking about some of our solutions and kind of understanding, okay, but that doesn't work within the framework of, state government. And this is how it works. And then so we knew where the barrier was. And then we can move our solution to fit within that in that area.
I'm going to make a massive presumption and suggest that there is a 2026 sustainability challenge on the horizon. Saf, if someone was to come up to you and say, listen, I've been approached about this, should I participate? What would you tell them?
Yeah, do it. Yeah, I think the context of what I've learned in the sustainability challenge will follow me for at least the rest of my recent career. Being able to use data science and statistics and in a context that I'm actually interested in is really, really powerful. I also think that learning about how to collaborate with others that aren't like yourself has made me see that the way we're going to solve some of these our biggest issues is breaking down these silos and reaching out towards industries that may be able to help. And that's something that I want to be a part of. And so absolutely do the sustainability challenge because it will open your mind.
Well, Josh, if that's not proof of concept, I don't know what is. But that being said, your work continues. Is there anything on the horizon that's specific to next year's challenge that you talk about the event evolving, or is it early days yet?
We've been very fortunate to have an opportunity to deliver the sustainability challenge as a model globally now. So we piloted the first global sustainability challenge for Curtin on our Singapore campus last year in November, and we're now in preparation for the global sustainability challenge in Dubai, which is happening this coming November. And through this, we provide an opportunity from students from all of the global campuses to come together and participate in a sustainability challenge. We work with the local global campus to identify industry partners in a similar way that we have explained that happens here at Bentley. And we identify challenges, and then we put the program together. We deliver it in a very similar way. It's an intensive. We have a combination of briefings from partners. We have site visits. We have masterclasses. We do the same studio-based learning type environment where students are working in teams, not only from different course backgrounds, but from different countries as well. The Singapore one was incredible. I'm so excited about Dubai. And I have a dream that over the coming years, we'll get to deliver one of these on each of our global campuses as part of Curtin's Global Scholar program.
Well, the scale of it certainly is becoming eye-watering. You should think of rebranding it to the Sustainability Juggernaut. Josh, Saf, thank you so much for coming in today. And if you're a student or industry member who would like to get involved in the Sustainability Challenge, visit the links in the show notes.
You've been listening to The Future Of, a podcast powered by Curtin University. As always, if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it. And don't forget to